Hello and welcome to this presentation on public sector licensing programs. My name is Vicky Lee and I'll be taking you through this session today. During this session, we're going to take a quick look at the government programs available and then we'll move on to focus on the academic licensing agreements. So let us start off by looking at the government programs. The eligibility of who can buy through the government programs does vary by region. So this link, for instance, takes us into the worldwide eligibility. And if we were to go into there, we could see, for instance, the eligibility of who can buy through the government programs in the EMEA region. But then again, if you wanted to check eligibility for the United States, you would use this link and you will see here that the eligibility does vary. So I think the key message here is it is very important with the government programs to check the requirements for your geography. We will have seen on earlier sessions the different volume licensing agreements that are available, and I will have talked about them from the commercial side of view. But all of these programs are generally available in government flavours as well, but the specifics of how these programs work do vary based on your geography. So it's worth being aware that there may then be additional frameworks around these agreements that have been agreed locally, but everything has been based on the commercial agreements. So I think the really important message here to take away is that for the government programs, you do need to check the specifics for your geography of how these programs actually work. Right, let's move on now to look at the academic programs. So what programs are available under academic licensing? Well, you can see on the slide here that we have the commercial volume licensing agreement shown because we'll use this as our start point. And you will see that there are some equivalent academic agreements. So we have academic agreements in the perpetual licensing space in the form of Academic Open and Academic Select Plus. And when we see the target audience there, these agreements are aimed at both the primary and secondary schools and universities and colleges. Academic Open can be sold by our authorised education resellers and the Academic Select Plus by our EdLARs. In the non-perpetual space, you'll see we've got a couple of extra offerings here. So we've got the schools agreement enrolment for our primary and secondary schools. We have the enrolment for education solutions aimed at universities and colleges. And then again, spanning both marketplaces, we have the OVS for education solutions. And these are the agreements, obviously, that we're going to go through now and look at in a bit more detail. Now, to purchase through these agreements, you do need to be a qualified educational user. And the link at the top will take you to the site where you can find out who is a qualified educational user. And again, a little bit like the government programs, this will vary by geography. But it could include, for instance, educational institutions, individuals, public libraries, that kind of thing. But I must emphasise again how important it is to check your geography to see the exact requirements there. So let's move on now to look at how the agreements actually work. And we're going to start off with our perpetual licensing programs. There are two of these, Academic Open and Academic Select Plus. And you can see here from the slide that I'm going to do Academic Open first. But it is worth being aware that both of these programs are what are referred to as transactional programs, which do allow the institutes to purchase licenses as and when required. So if we move into Academic Open, let's have a look at some of the key facts hiding behind this. Well, we've seen before already that they are perpetual licenses. So when you buy through these agreements, you're buying the rights to use the software forever. A 5-license purchase is all that's required to start purchasing through that agreement, and it is a 2-year agreement. It has 2 price levels based on points and pools, and I'm going to come to that in a little bit more detail shortly. Software assurance, as ever through an open agreement, is an optional purchase. The media can be purchased separately and it is available through our authorised education reseller channel. So how does the pricing work? Well, it's always with an open agreement, the initial order which sets the price level. So when you're buying through Academic Open, it works in a similar way to commercial, in that you would need to make a shopping list of all of the licenses that you want to purchase. And those licenses would be split into the 3 different pools of systems, applications and servers. Every license has a points value associated with it, and it is the total number of points per pool that will specify the initial price level. And it is worth remembering that if software assurance is being purchased with those licenses, that does have a points value as well, and that is half the license points per year of the agreement. So you've worked out for each pool individually how many points worth of licenses are on that initial order. And then if it's just a few licenses being purchased, the price level would be the academic open business price level. So you can see that's if you're purchasing that minimum of 5 licenses, but not a significant quantity, you would go into that price level. However, for any pool that you hit 150 points worth of licenses on the initial order, you would go into the academic open volume price level. So bear in mind, each pool can have its own price level running, and that price level is set at the start of the 2 years of the agreement and held for the full 2 years. Okay, so let's move on now to look at the second of our perpetual licensing programs, which is Academic Select Plus. So if we look at the key facts about Academic Select Plus, you can see that you're purchasing perpetual licenses through this agreement and that the agreement is an evergreen agreement. So once signed, that agreement will run forever. It is aimed at institutions of 250 plus PC, so we're looking at the larger institution. And there is a minimum spend of 500 points worth of licenses per year. Software assurance again is an optional purchase through this agreement, and it is available through the EdLAR, the Education Law channel. And I think one of the nice things about the Academic Select Plus agreement compared to, say, the non-perpetual agreements is that organisation-wide coverage is optional here. So you absolutely could license all of the machines in the institute through an Academic Select Plus, but you don't have to. Now, one of the factors that it is important to think about is that there is a minimum spend of 500 points worth of licenses per year. So when you buy licenses through an Academic Select Plus, they are split into the 3 different pools of systems, applications and servers. Each license has a points value associated with it. And again, if you do purchase software assurance, that is calculated at half the license points per year of the agreement. So what we have here is a running total during the year of the number of licenses or the number of points worth of licenses purchased in each pool. And for a pool to remain active, that does need to be at least 500 points per year. Let us move on now then to look at the subscription licensing programs. And if we just take a quick reminder of the agreements that do follow this non-perpetual licensing, we've got the schools agreement enrolment, we've got the enrolment for education solutions, and what we call OVS-ES. Now these agreements, you can see, all have software assurance included in them. So when you purchase your license, you're buying license with SA. And they all have some form of organisation-wide commitment, be it either on PC count or FTE count, which we will look at in a bit more detail shortly. So as I mentioned, the non-perpetual academic agreements all include software assurance, so you'll be subscribing to your license with SA. And this slide just shows the software assurance benefits that you'll get through these agreements. So for instance, you get your new version rights, the rights to run Windows 8 Enterprise Edition, your step-up licenses, so you can move up the editions of software. You see some of the training, TechNet, and some of the support benefits as well. But it is worth noting that the list of software assurance benefits you get through the academic agreements isn't quite as big as the list you would get through your commercial agreements. And if you did want to check what benefits you were going to get, the product list is the document to go and look in. So let's go into some detail now about the first of our subscription licensing programs, the school enrolment. So if we look at the key facts about the school enrolment, we can see that it is aimed at primary and secondary schools and does have an institution-wide commitment, which is based on PC count. So I will come to that in a bit more detail shortly. There are minimum units required to start purchasing through this enrolment, and these minimum units again vary by region, so you will need to check in your local region to find out what they are. There are two price levels, a level A and a level B pricing, and if you are over 2,500 PCs, then you would move up into level B pricing. They're non-perpetual licenses, as we've seen, and the enrolment is either a 1 or a 3-year enrolment, so you can make that decision. Annual payment and reporting for the licenses, and we've already commented that through these non-perpetual agreements, software assurance is included. You can purchase this enrolment or buy through this enrolment via your AER, but it does sit under the Campus and Schools Agreement. So the CASA has the terms and conditions, and then the enrolment would sit underneath that. Now, as I mentioned, there is a minimum unit count required to start purchasing through the school enrolment. So how do we calculate the number of units? Well, there's a couple of steps to this. First of all, we have to calculate the number of desktop units there are. So you do this by counting the number of PCs that you have. So you have to count all of your, as it says here, Pentium 3, iMac G3, equivalent or better machines. You would count all of those, plus the number of other computers using the software that you're going to purchase. And that will bring up your number of eligible PCs. So that gives you your eligible PC count. Then you choose which software you're going to take. So for instance, Windows 8 Pro, Office Professional Plus, or one of the CAL suites. And these normally have a unit count of 1. So you would work out which of those products you want and how many points or unit counts per PC. So in our example at the bottom of the slide, because they're taking Windows 8 Pro and Office Professional Plus and CoreCal, that's 3 points per PC. So you would multiply 3 by the total number of eligible PCs, and that would get your PC count. Then you need to calculate your server units, and again each product has a points value associated with it, so it's just worth calculating how many units or how many points worth of server software you would be purchasing. So in this example 150 units. And then basically you add together the desktop units that you've calculated and the server units. And in our example, we have a total number of 450 units. And we would need to check that that met the minimum for the region that we were purchasing through. And as long as you hit that minimum, then you'll be eligible to purchase through the school enrolment. Now, when purchasing through a school's enrolment, the institution does have to cover all of their eligible PCs with at least one of the platform's software. And you can see here they've got a choice of Windows 8 Enterprise Edition, Office Professional Plus or Office for Mac, and CoreCal or Enterprise Cal Suite. And the institute can obviously choose any of these components. However, they can go for a whole desktop and get a discount on that price. And you'll see that there are two desktops. There's the school desktop with CoreCal, which consists of Windows 8 Enterprise and Office and the CoreCal suite, or the school desktop with Enterprise Cal, which again you can see is Windows 8 Enterprise, Office, or the Enterprise Cal suite. So you could go for the individual components if you desired, but going for a whole desktop obviously covers your machines with all of those 3 components and an extra discount on the license price for doing so. Now, it is possible as well through the school's enrolment to purchase additional products. So if we think the desktop products that we looked at on the previous slide, you have to cover your eligible machines with at least one of them. The additional products are optional purchases on top, and these are the other products that sit in the applications pool, the systems pool, or the service pool, so project, Visio, that type of thing. However, through the school's enrolment, if you do purchase additional products, they do have to be put institute-wide. So you would need to cover all of the eligible PCs with the software chosen, even if they're only running on a portion of the machines. Now, under the school enrolment, there is an extra enrolment known as the student option. And if you enroll into this, it allows you to license students to use products on personally owned computers or institution-owned computers that have been designated for a student's exclusive use. Now, there is some eligibility for this extra enrolment. There are minimum programme units that do apply, and again, these vary by region. And the students must be enrolled in the educational institution. So what happens here is the institution chooses the number of students that they want to be licensed. They choose the products that they want to license them with, but note that these do not have to match those chosen for faculty and staff. And when the students leave or graduate, they must deinstall the software. Once they leave that institution, they are no longer licensed to use the software that has been purchased through the student option. The last area to think about with regard to the school enrolments is working at home. And there are two usage rights that come into play here. There's the work at home rights and the home use programme software assurance benefit. Now, work at home rights allows staff to take the software that they are licensed for on their work computer. They can take that home and use it on their personally owned computer, but only for institution-related purposes. And it is only the member of staff who is the primary user of the school computer that gets these rights. Whereas the home use programme, which is a software assurance benefit, allows staff to get the Microsoft desktop application software and use that on their home computer for both work and personal use. But there is a nominal cost for this, which is really just the media cost. So it is two options, two ways of allowing your staff to use the work software on the home machines. But you will see if you look at the pink text at the bottom that an institution is not permitted to provide software for the same title to a staff member via both the home use programme and work at home rights. So it is really an either or here. So the last area then we're going to have a look at is the other two subscription licensing programmes, OVS ES and EES, the Enrolment for Education Solutions. And we are going to look at these together because the structure and the rules behind these programmes is very, very similar. And there are just a few key differences which we'll point out as we go along. So let's have a look at the key facts for OVS ES and EES. And first of all, the academic institutions that they're aimed at. Now, EES is aimed at universities and colleges, whereas OVS ES is aimed at all academic institutions. They both have institution-wide commitment based on the FTE count, and they both have minimum units required to purchase through these agreements. They're non-perpetual licenses, and again, the agreement term is a 1 or a 3-year agreement. We've got annual payment and reporting of licenses, so we've got our lovely sort of spread annual payments, which is great. And software assurance is included through these agreements. Now, the channel that they're available through is subtly different. So OVS ES is available through the AER channel, whereas EES does sit under the campus and school agreement, very much like the school enrolment did. So it sits under that high-level terms and conditions of the CASA and is available through the EDLAR channel. Now, the price levels do vary for OVS ES and EES. So let's take a look at OVS ES first, and we know it's the AERs that can sell this. So we have an entry level of 5 FTEs to start purchasing through OVS ES, and level E pricing ranges from 5 to 1,000. After that, if you have more than 1,000 FTEs, you move into level F pricing. And this does actually mean that the AERs can now, with OVS ES, sell into the larger institutions. Now that level F pricing is the same as the EES level A pricing. And you'll see to purchase under the Enrolment for Education Solutions, or EES, that you have an entry level of 1,000 FTEs. So that is the minimum requirement for EES. And then we have 4 price levels running after that. So level B starting at 3,000 FTEs, level C at 10,000 and level D at 25,000. So as I mentioned before, the OVS, ES and EES all have a minimum FTE count to start purchasing through those enrolments. And so you have to count your number of FTEs and license them with the chosen products. And for OVS, ES, the minimum was 5 FTEs, whereas for EES it was 1,000. So what actually is an FTE? Well, it really stands for full-time equivalent. And the way to calculate your FTE count does vary slightly based on region. But for most of the world, it is done as we can see here in the pink boxes. You have to add up your full-time faculty staff, the number of part-time faculty divided by 3, plus your full-time staff, and again the number of part-time staff divided by 2. And you add that up together and you get your FTE count. So most of the world works like that, but for instance in the UK, a full-time equivalent is anyone working for more than 200 hours a year. Now there are optional exclusions on your FTE count, and you can see here employees such as maintenance staff, groundsmen, cafeteria staff. They can be excluded from that FTE count if they are not using institutional devices. So when you're purchasing through OVS, ES or EES, you have calculated your FTE count as discussed on the previous slide. You then have to license your FTE count with the desktop platform products. And again, you can choose the individual desktop platform products or you can choose a whole desktop. So the individual products, again, Windows 8 Enterprise, Office and Core Cal or Enterprise Cal Suite. Or if you go for the whole desktop, you can go for the Education Desktop with Core Cal or the Education Desktop with the Enterprise Cal Suite. So you have to license your FTE count with at least one of the desktop platform products. It is also possible with the Cal Suites, rather than buying a whole Cal Suite, to go for the individual Cal Suite components. So these individual components are not counted as the desktop platform products, but they must be licensed enterprise-wide. So if you do go for the individual Cal Suite components, you have to license your full FTE count with them. Now it is also possible through OVS, ES and EES to take additional products, and our slide here suggesting, for instance, Project or Visio. And a nice thing to know about through these programs is that they can be purchased in any quantity. They do not have to be taken enterprise-wide. However, if they are taken enterprise-wide, they will be processed at, as it says here, an advantageous price point. So the price will be significantly cheaper if you are taking those additional products enterprise-wide as opposed to not. Now OVS, ES and EES do also have a student option available, and again this allows you to license the students to use a selection of products on a personally owned computer or institution owned computer designated for a student's exclusive use. Now the eligibility varies slightly, so for OVS, ES there is a minimum student FTE count of 5, and for EES that minimum FTE count for the students of 1,000. And as you can imagine, the students must be enrolled in that educational institution. So how does it work? Well, the institution will designate a department and that they're going to cover with the student option, and if they're covering just a department, you must license all of the students in that department, or if you're going for the whole institution, all of the students. You do have to calculate your total student FTE count, and this is all the number of full-time students plus a third of the part-time students. And the products that are being run on those student devices do not have to match those chosen for the faculty and staff. However, there is one bit that varies. With EES, you can see on that bottom bullet point, the students that are included and that graduate during the licence term are granted perpetual usage rights to the licensed products, so they can keep the software on their machines and carry on using it. Whereas with OVS-ES, the students that graduate during the licence term, they have no perpetual rights, so they must deinstall the software once they have graduated. And again with OVS-ES and EES, we do get rights for working at home, and these come again in the form of the work at home rights or the home use programme. So the work at home rights, if you remember, allows faculty and staff that are licensed to use the application system and CAL products. They can use that on a personally owned computer, but only for institution related purposes. And you can see here that all employees that have been included in the FTE count automatically get these rights. Whereas the home use programme, that software assurance benefit, means that faculty and staff can use the desktop application software, so in other words, Office Professional Plus, for use on their home computer for work and personal use, but at a nominal cost. So again, they do need to purchase the media. And as before, institutions are not permitted to provide software for the same title to the same staff member via HUP and work at home. And the last thing to mention is the IT Academy subscription, which is available through the non-perpetual academic agreements. And really, this is a whole set of services and resources. So we can see that there are curriculum solutions there to assist staff. There again are professional development tools to help staff become Microsoft certified trainers. There's resources to help students get the Microsoft certifications, a whole mass of stuff sitting inside of the IT Academy. So if you haven't looked at this in the past, I would definitely check this out. So that concludes this presentation. I hope you have found it interesting and wish you the very best of luck when taking the associated assessment. Goodbye.